Welcome to the Dallas Personal Robotics Group meeting for March. Today we've got the privilege of our guest Rob Salsman up front here, VP at KABAM Robotics, who's going to talk to us and about their robots. So what we'll do is we'll have Rob come up first and tell us about his robotics, and then we'll move on to DPRG updates, news about the club, and then we'll go on to any general discussion, and then finally we'll have robot show and tell. Pizza should be arriving at noon, and so if you hear, and we've got a wireless doorbell, hopefully you all saw that on the way in. If you hear ding dong, that'll be our pizza or someone late. So go and let them in. So without further ado, so KABAM Robotics is a Singaporean company that's establishing a U.S. presence here based here in the DFW area, and their HR director contacted the DPRG to establish local robotics contacts, and they're going to be hiring in the U.S. as they grow. Rob is going to present their system and their robots to us. So let me give you the mic, Rob, and stop presenting, and I'll turn it over to you.
Right. I saw an interview with Paul Rudd and Bill Murray where they were sticking these on the inside of their mouth. I'm not Bill Murray. I can't get away with that kind of thing.
Probably want to present your screen.
Yeah, that's what I was going to share my screen here. All right. So yeah, hi everyone. I am Rob Salsman. I'm the Senior Vice President of KABAM Robotics. I'll hand out some cards and stuff here. I am from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I was born in Louisville and grew up in Lake Dallas, and I live in Denton. I went to University of North Texas. And, I've been fortunate enough through my career to travel all over the world and realize, like, why would I ever leave here? It's a pretty awesome place. So, my career has, I got into IP security when IP security cameras were first kind of taking over from analog. And so, helped launch like Vivotech, which was a major IP camera brand. I was the first non-Taiwanese employee for their company, helping them launch in the US. And, back then it was a lot about, helping people understand, like, from the economic aspect, like, hey, you have a certain skill set. Well, now you can do security, or if your previous skill set was in security, you're going to have to learn a new skill set, right? So understanding, like, kind of evolution of these markets. And, through that, I've been in and around and now worked with security robotics companies for the last 10 years, trying to bring these to mass market because, look, everybody knows, right? Like, it's not very hard to try to sell the concept of a security robot. Everybody gets it, right? Like, everybody wants to be secure and all these things. And, the main thing with anything is, especially in the security business, right? We've spent the last, I talk about this a lot. We've all spent the last 20 to 40 years, like, turning every single building into a robot, right? These intelligent buildings with the sensors and the things they can do. The building itself is a robot, right? So now we just have to take that concept and say, okay, we're moving that now to this mobile robot. So then you're just making one big robot interact with a smaller robot that it can move, right? And I think if you take that overall systems thinking architecture, that's where you really start to see how do we move from science projects and POCs and innovation directors and all of this that want to say, can it do this, can it do that, to actually saying, okay, but, like, here's a mass market product that can benefit mankind, right? Which is, like, really what we're all about. And so that's kind of been my journey, right? Is, like, helping to try to bring that type level of adoption and stuff to the security robotics market. For us, I joined KABAM in Singapore because from Singapore last year to help them launch in the US, because very like-minded organization, where the limitations in security robotics world, what's happened, and no disrespect, right, to any roboticists, right, because I certainly am on this side, but the one reason why security robots, and this happens with a lot of innovation, it's like that innovator's dilemma, right, which is like, you create a product that's so good that it's obvious. It's like, well, obviously this is what people would buy, and they're going to buy it based on the quality and the functionality that it provides. That's not how decisions are made, like especially at an enterprise level, so this is why there's so many, you guys probably yourselves and colleagues and everybody that probably have better robots that are available out on the mass market, because it's like all about how do you get that product to actually be an innovative product to fit into the market, right? And that's a huge challenge, and that's where that's what I've been kind of on this mission. It's like when you go to a security conference and you have a robot, it's not necessarily about what can that robot do, what are all its functionalities. That's what can that robot do with all of these other things that are in that conference, right? And you have to look at it from that kind of holistic perspective. And so, again, I think KABAM understands that. And one of these things is, if you look at it traditionally, the way technologies kind of innovate to market, right? It's always driven by some type of factor, right? And in this instance, you see Singapore really being innovative in the robotics space because they have an aging workforce, right? And they're a small island nation, right? That whole nation has a smaller GDP than the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, right? Like from Denton to McKinney is the size of the whole country, so but so what that means is that you get governmental support and all these kind of things, and you can go out and deploy on the level of enterprise scale, but it's all within a 15 to 30 mile radius. So then you get to learn a lot about that, right? And I think that's what's really helping, because KABAM's not the only company coming out of Singapore that's driving robotics. It's a very driven field because of these issues there. So really what our solution is, and I think what makes us different, and you can see our fleet of robots there on the left. The two on the left, the two guys there, those are partnered with just specifically like ODM for a security company in Southeast Asia called Certus. So they've got a lot of those deployed. Like, you fly into Singapore at the Changi airport, those robots are right outside, protecting everything. And then the other two on the right there, the CoLab and the Halo, those are the ones that we deploy mass market around the world, and indoor and outdoor robots. But really for us, what it's all about is that, the Smart Plus mission control software, because ultimately, like, the robot is, the hardware itself is just a vessel, right? Like the actual brains is the software, right? And it's like Steve Jobs said, like any serious software company has to build hardware, because like until the hardware exists that does everything that you want your software to do, you just have to build the hardware, right? Because ultimately, if you think about it, like I talk about this a lot in the world of security robotics, like literally every robot can be a security robot, right? Any robot that's out there moving around somewhere that has some type of sensor is gathering data. So it's not about really what the robot is doing. It's about what are you doing with that data to give security intelligence to whoever needs it, right? And so that's where the Smart Plus becomes this huge piece. And it's a driven initiative from the Singapore government with the robotic middleware framework, so that we're able to, then through ours, we are device agnostic, right? So we work with ROS. We can support any ROS robot. So we develop everything on ours with ROS. Yeah. So if you have any ROS robot, like we can immediately bring that into, like, again, talking about innovation to market. Now you go to a company out there that wants to deploy for an end user where they want to have delivery robots and cleaning robots and security robots and all these other type of robots, right? But like, how do you, manage 40 different types of robots and all of that? Well, now with the Smart Plus, you can get like one report at the end of the night that gives them all of this data, right? Like whether it's security information, facilities management, deliveries made, all of this kind of stuff can be all set in this one location, So our CoLab indoor robot, and I don't have him here. And one of the things that we were talking about, Paul and I were talking about, is the nice thing is because we are, everything is kind of built up. It looks like this. I mean, this is a terrible 3D print, but much taller in person. So our experience center is just here in Irving. So right on 183 in Irving Boulevard, it's this big 33-acre campus. And so the outdoor robot's always running around out there. It's a very, very neat place. And then the indoor robots are inside. So yeah, after this, I mean, I definitely would, anybody that wants to come see these in person and see them doing all of these things and interact, and we can set that up for sure, because they would love to have you guys. So so he's about shoulder height or so when his boom is down. And then when his boom is fully extended, it's up to 2 meters. Yeah. And so this is our indoor security robot collab. And, if you look at these, I mean, all of these are, again, the brains of this is the Smart Plus. The feature sets in terms of the hardware are fairly similar in terms of the indoor and outdoor, right? The outdoor has some additional things. Indoor does as well. The indoor robot has obviously LiDAR, ultrasonic sensors for detecting glass, making sure I'm not smashing through things like that. Microphone, we actually have 2 microphones on there now because of some concierge features. And I want to talk about that in a minute as well, because that's some neat stuff. The touchscreen pad as well, which is really, again, along with those lines, it's really developing more from, it's not something that people are going to interact with. It's like where the personality of the robot interacts with people through, right? So like, for instance, we've got a big trade show coming up in Las Vegas, right? And, the whole goal of me as building a robot company, right? The idea is that these robots can do security, they can do concierge. Well, why can't they also sell themselves, right? So at these trade shows, the robots are going to be presenting themselves and selling themselves, right? So, because why not, right? I mean, that's the best way to show those types of integration. And then going up to obviously the security array at the top, and it's a 360-degree camera. Like you see there, that the main requirement that we had when building this was, in Singapore, it's a very dynamic environment. Again, that's one of the things that makes us unique when you look at other security type robots that are out there, because, a lot of security robots, again, and I have worked with, literally, you Google security robots and all those companies that come up, then I've probably worked with them and helped them at some point. So it's just kind of been, a passion of mine, right? Like I have kids in school. They've pretty much grown up out of school, luckily at this point. But like, when it's like I see, again, just like anybody, right? You see the idea of like putting a robot outside of the school and what that can do for protecting the school from the things that happen there, And I think that's what drives a lot of us. And for me, it's all about how do you prevent something? You go from a proactive instance, because I'm obviously and I wouldn't be in this position if I wasn't like a Keynesian, utopian, right? Like I believe that robotics, like, the concept of robotic dystopia, like that sells a lot of movies and books and stuff, but that's absolute nonsense, right? Like the future is a robotic utopia, right? Because human beings at every single choice, we always choose comfort, right? So like we choose comfort. And so we're going to continue to choose those paths until the robots are doing all of our jobs for us. And ideally, like, my kids and grandkids will never have to work except for whatever creativity they want to create using their fleet of robots, right? So that's kind of like, integrating where, like I said, this robot being able to do more than just security, but out of the, how do we get these to mass market? It's like, okay, here's the demand right now. It's that there's jobs out there, and this is where the robots are. There's jobs out there like being a security guard, mopping the floors, whatever it is, right? Like the generation that, forget it. People always say it's the young generation. It's no generation. Nobody wants to be a security guard. Nobody wants to mop floors, right? Like that's okay. So like, so the question is like, how do you take like the labor that people need and address that with the labor that people want to do, right? And so this is like upskilling these positions of security guard, of whatever, to now, you can go to say, hey, you know how you got your degree and you became a robot programmer and all these kind of things? Well, like, here's how you can also be in the security industry and make a difference, right? Like it's just a complete change of this. And so what it allows people to do, and I mean, you guys are a huge part of this, but what it allows you to do and why there's such a, did I disconnect something?
Oh, no, you're good. We're about to lose power over there. The outlet is dead. So I have to find an extension cord. I apologize.
No worries.
Well, we've got a break. Can people in the back see the slide, or should I make it full screen?
For full screen, the older people full screen. Closer, stay to this power. No, just so. Everything was wrong with that.
Yeah. I want to do that. Which is the presentation.
No, just for this, we're good.
I think you click on it and click like focus. Pen, yeah, maybe it's pen.
I go.
No.
Why is it still good?
Oh, okay, that's.
Boy Scout is always there.
And then maybe that other one said change layout. I'm not sure.
That's already getting pretty good.
On that same 3 dots, there you go. Spotlight. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
I mean, it wouldn't be a Google meeting if we didn't have that moment. It's fun to do it live. Usually I'm doing that at home by myself.
I think we try. But you wasn't here. You got send it over. I did too. That's what hard can it be?
Yeah.
Opening on that. Still on the phone, still on the line. And still.
Okay, sorry, guys. My people are dropping off the cars. I have 7. Oh my goodness, why is it not like?
So could your extension cords have been full?
So it's a great idea.
I've not a very long, weeks had it in for 2 years or so. I've used it this times before. I'm gonna try the other one.
Measure. It was nasty. Power grids.
This is what I love about being in a room of technologists is that everybody knows that technology doesn't work. So it's like,
And that's what it was.
if you're in a room with a bunch of business people, they're freaking out right now.
That outlet could not support. These
It's
are
like, of course it doesn't work.
235 watt bricks. And that outlet couldn't support it.
Wow.
It throttled me.
Wow.
It happens in hotel rooms, especially on airplanes too.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that on it.
But then that, yeah.
Wow. Sorry for the interruption, Rob.
No, no worries. Oh,
Oh, because I yanked it out. When in doubt. Okay, now we're going. Yay! Thank you, everybody. Sorry about that.
So yeah, our collab indoor robot, he does a lot, right? We're bridging 2 real main kind of verticals, which is security robots and facilities management. And so the robot obviously is doing his security patrols and all of these types of applications, but he's also able to do concierge. And like I was saying, we're doing, these full level large language model applications now, what we call RIMI. And so, what's really neat about RIMI is like, you can take Collab, for instance, and say, it has, like, they program things into it, but then it does things that we don't really know, right? Because it learns by inference. So like, because it's plugged into ChatGPT, so you can say, hey, I'm thirsty, right? or you, instead of saying, take me to the pantry, right? And you say, I'm thirsty. It says, oh, okay, well, let me take you to our pantry. There's a number of different snacks and drinks and stuff in there, right? And that's not something that we trained it how to do, right? That's an unexpected thing that it learned how to do on its own because of being able to access the ChatGPT side of things. So, but that's nice to do that because basically it's like we're able to overlay the, the different points on the map and the different functionalities and all these things that the robot can do. And then it can say, okay, well, if somebody's hungry, I know what a pantry is. Here's something on the map called pantry. I should probably take them to the pantry. So, yeah, so that's pretty neat. And then, we can do this. We also have some applications where we utilize the storage compartment to be able to securely deliver medication from one floor of a hospital, or even to integrate, to go with a casino in Singapore. We're able to deliver chips to the floor, by having that secure. So you actually have a security robot delivering chips between the bank and the tables. So this guy here is our Halo outdoor robot. And, you can see he's a little more tactical, kind of shaped like a Trojan horse, maybe. And he's about, say 4 feet tall or so. And some of the additions that he has on here, a lot of the functionalities is still the same. There's still the 360-degree camera array for the security. One of the additions, obviously, you can see has the 3D LiDAR on the top. Some of the other things that we do in terms of navigation, right? We've worked with Amazon and because of our AWS, and also because of our past really coming from on the software side, really coming from a teleoperations first, and so as opposed to building an autonomous robot first and then figuring out how to teleoperate it. Our founder on that does our hardware and stuff came from the world of doing submersibles for the military, like demining robots and teleoperations and stuff like that. And then that became adapted to, different types of robots in logistics centers, which then became, okay, there's opportunities for security robots. So again, that is unique, because one of the things that people ask all the time, right, is if you have a Halo robot and he's outside and it's a dynamic environment, you can, we know this, right? We're in Texas, we just had a big storm blow through. The Halo's out there, the branch gets blown through. What does an autonomous robot do, right? Whereas that's a human, he's going to be able to, climb over it or whatever, move it and determine it needs to move. Can the robot be, if it's just a fully autonomous robot, like some of the ones that are out there, that literally will shut the thing down. It's can't run mission. Somebody's got to go out there and put hands on it. Where ours, because of our connectivity and teleoperation abilities, somebody can immediately guide the robot around there and then put in a maintenance ticket because of our integrations with the building systems to be able to say, hey, whatever it is, this thing needs to be cleared out here, these kind of things like that. So helping automate that whole process. For us, one of the interesting things is that, our parent company has been making robots now for 30 years in the automotive business. Doing press automation. And so been making the, stamping panels for cars and stuff like that. And so because of that, from a manufacturing standpoint, we really have that kind of modular build spec. So you see everything that goes into there, we try to make it where everything can be interchangeable on if a customer needs more battery or all these kind of things, basically essentially creating different personas for the robot, right? So outdoor robot is a great example because an indoor robot is pretty straightforward in terms of what they would do for a building or for an office, but an outdoor robot, there's drastically different applications, right? If you have an outdoor robot that's doing a parking garage, that's going to be very different than an outdoor robot that's patrolling a perimeter on 1,000-acre facility or something, right? Because of the way you have to map and track and GPS and private LTE and all of these kind of things. And so, having this modular build spec allows us to build those different personas into the robot, really, really quickly, and then also make them field swappable so that, customers that are out there, if they need to add different technologies, it's something that we can do, because obviously everything, not just us, but literally everything in this space, in the security robot space, is delivered on a RaaS program, robot as a service subscription. Because, it's that again, talking about innovating to market, you can't sell a robot. I've literally done this in the past. You just go and sell it. You think, wow, Microsoft, they got all the money and they're the biggest technology company in the world. And we'll sell them robots. They'll figure it out. Let me tell you, when you sell Microsoft robots, they end up sitting in the Microsoft warehouse somewhere because whoever it was that bought those robots moves on somewhere else. And then the new people that work there don't even remember what those robots were for. So they don't do anything, right? And this is the cycle. This is literally the cycle, not for my robot, for the innovation cycle of why robots have not made it mass market yet, right? And so then you have to address those of like, okay, well, that's neat. It's like you can't sell these to an end user because you would have to expect every end user to shut down for a year, create a new division, you know, hire one of you guys, pay you for a year to do nothing but learn how to learn that robot, right? Like they don't have, businesses don't work on that, right? It's not the way it works. And so that's why everyone wants to consume it as a ROS or a RAS, because then what you can do too, if you look at it from the standpoint of like, I'm getting into the robotics business, there's, you know, because there's X amount of dollars here, and those X amount of dollars say, you know, like if you were to look up and say, how much is the security robotics business going to grow from now until 2029? And it would probably say something like, I don't know, it might be 18 billion by 2029. Yeah, that's like a really ghost shadow number, because that's basically saying like based on like hardware, right? But the actual real number that's out there is that service model business, right? Because the money that you're going after is not selling hardware at all, right? It's not that this robot is going to come and do something better than a security camera could do, because obviously you could do that. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think you just said that you left the meeting, and I think that
Oh no.
the guest Wi-Fi thing.
Oh, kicked me off. Yeah, you're right. Sorry about that.
No, I mean, our first experience with it.
Brand battery screen said you go to the.
Me?
Oh, you're alone.
I just got disconnected.
Let's give you a different password and I don't know if that other network is better. It's just a little bit.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ash.
Okay.
Perhaps we'll have a better look on there.
This one?
Yes.
Probably means I'm going to get expired here before long too. I'm going to do that because my computer is providing the audio to the remote
Okay.
attendees. Ashley,
Yes.
get that as well. Come back in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Interruption.
Oh, hold on. I joined the wrong one, I guess. I joined the one that says no one's here, so that must not be the right link.
Slash. I've got videos coming up on my laptop.
Interesting.
Same presentation.
No, somehow I got joined into the wrong meeting.
No.
There you go. I found it. It was okay. So yeah, like I was saying, that's the reason for the whole modular build spec. And I would say, like, if I was a guy that was building a robot and thinking, how am I going to make $1 billion in the next 10 years on this robot? Like, number one thing is just like, it's good enough, just like get it out there, right? Because like, that's the problem that I see constantly, honestly, like, you know, dealing with like the engineering side. It's like, you know, there are those people that realize like it's an ever evolving product, right? And there are those people that want it to be perfect to get it to market, you know? And the thing is that with the robot as a service, now you're thinking about, it's like I always make the analogy. It's like in 1999, you wanted to go buy a video game. You went down to Hastings or whatever, and you bought your video game, and you went home and you opened it and you put the CD-ROM in and downloaded it, blah, blah, blah. In 2001, you wanted to buy a video game. You downloaded it, and then you started downloading updates, right? Like that's how fast, like how the whole world changed in software. Well, that's where we're at in hardware, right? Because like all of these pieces are going to change, and you have to make it where the ROI for a robot, you need to spread this out over a long lifetime for an end user, right? And so you got to figure like over 8 years, like if they're going to they're going to be able to get your robot for whatever it is, say $100,000 or something like that. Well, now it's going to work out to be literally pennies on the dollar of an hour versus the labor that they would have had to pay, right? And so that's really the way. It's like, because if you just get it, if you just wait till the robot's going to be perfect, like it never will be, because there's always going to be a new sensor or something else that's going to come out. So you got to build it with that in mind of like, it's going to be an evolution. I'm not building a finished product, right? I'm building a company that's going to be like in a quantum world of probability. Like you're going to be able to choose whatever it is at the time that's going to make your product successful in the market that exists at the time, So when we talk about our Smart Plus mission control, again, we leveraging that connectivity side, allows us to do like device agnostic robot operations like we talked about. So again, any type of ROS robot, we can bring that in and provide fleet management, systems control, all of that to those robots, which is a big piece. Lift integration, obviously that's elevator. That's just,
Glacier elevator.
Yeah, exactly. Singapore, they speak British English. So anyway, so we do the elevator integrations, which is a huge demand in the robotics world. Now I will say that, again, if I was a developer developing things that the world needs, like that's something where there's a lot of place to be figured out, right? Because the way you do it now is that you have elevator companies, they charge a whole lot to develop even with the APIs, to be able to integrate their API with your robot so that your robot can call that elevator. And then that's just because then the robot knows it's talking to, or an elevator knows it's talking to a robot, right? But as a security guy, like I already know, like there's, whether you're using BLE or NFC, like from an access control type device, right? Like we can already call any of us, if we have a card, we can call that elevator to take us to a specific place, right? So all you have to do is write the right software to be able to integrate with the building management systems that already integrate with the, with the elevators to be able to bridge those gaps, right? And I think that's where, the Smart Plus robotic middleware framework is, you kind of see where it becomes this really key piece. Obviously, we do a lot with the computer vision and stuff like that. Not only with using the security pieces and the facilities management pieces for detecting things, but also now with in terms of navigation and stuff, like with homography and stuff like that, we can use visual navigation becomes just as powerful as LiDAR and stuff, because especially as we all know, right, like when I used to sell robots that didn't have LiDAR for the outdoor, right, like I would say, why would you want an outdoor robot with LiDAR? Because when it rains, it doesn't work, right? So you just have to have, redundant systems, I think is the key piece, And then again, obviously full interoperability with our systems, the robots interacting with building management systems, with access control systems, security systems, being able to, for instance, like the robot triggering something and saying there's a spill on the floor or there's a light out, and being able to immediately create a work ticket in the maintenance department, instead of having to, notify a person or say, oh, is this an anomaly? And then someone checks it and then they put in the work ticket, right? Like eliminating that workflow right there. That's how you start to get, like, literally, when you look at it from an economist perspective on robotics, right? Like when you start having a robot talk to another robot to have something done without a human being in that piece, your ROI starts to approach infinity, right? Because that can go on forever, So then what becomes the important part is that you have a robot that can be serviced and maintained all the time, right? And that's the other thing too, is like the most successful ones, right? Is that you build with off the shelf parts as much as possible, right? Even if they seem like parts that are not as advanced as you could get, if you build with those off the shelf parts, well, that's going to make it so that if the person that wants to buy your product and sell it, whether they're in Poland or, you know, whatever, like Chicago, like you can say, okay, go down and buy this 12-volt battery. Like, oh, okay. You know, because that's the other killer, right? You see technologies where they're shipping, you know, if you ship batteries and power supplies across the world, like, doesn't work. You know, you have to like figure out how to get those things locally sourced. So, so some of the features, I mean, we talked about that a lot, but, you know, to be able to put all those reports, be able to create those individual tickets, you know, our Smart Plus, and I'm not connected to it. But again, that's something where if we, you know, anybody that wants to come see these robots in person, we can get even if we want to do a remote, anybody wants to join remotely, we can do a remote demo showing the Smart Plus software in action, because, you know, that is something that's really nice, is that, you know, what we're really trying to do, I think, is, you know, like I said, trying to make robotics mass market. I mean, obviously everybody in my position is, but especially on the security side, because, you know, we need it, sure, right? And the way to do that is to try to demystify that, and that's really what the Smart Plus does a lot of. So being able to do point and click, drop waypoints, you know, you want the robot to go here, I mean, you just drag, you know, point and click the mouse, all these kind of things, to be able to do that on a mobile device, all of that stuff, you know, really trying to make it as user-friendly as possible. And then, like I said, with the new integrations that we have with our RIMI, which is our concierge, you know, which is robot-enabled something intelligence. What's the M for? I don't know. Oh, there you go. That sounds good enough to me. That's probably it. Robot-enabled machine. So anyway, but then that also sounds repetitive when I say it in my head. So anyway, yeah. So that, but RIMI being able to take those commands, you know, that's really pushing the Smart Plus another level. And then, you know, essentially, if you think about how that gets used, it's like, you know, now you go and train, because we don't have to do that. What we're doing is those RIMI functions, all of those functions really become imbued in whatever device is running our Smart Plus, right? So now the Poodoo robot or the Gaussium cleaning robot, or, you know, literally like a lawnmower robot, like if it's integrated with Smart Plus, with that, you could go say, start mowing the lawn, or, you know, go clean the dining room or whatever, right? Like you can talk to any of those third-party robots the same as with ours through that integration. And these are some of the, you know, in terms of how people actually use these robots, obviously, you know, the number one use case, as you can imagine, is seeing people loitering and moving people along from loitering. So whether that's inside, outside, cars, stuff like that, they're used. I mean, the primary demand that people have, you know, where I think we're going to see these adopted, obviously, is parking garages. You know, that's the number one use case in the US. You know, and I think there's a lot of different use cases in the US, but, you know, really, like, especially for a group of you guys, right? It's like these robots really are like, essentially what we're developing is, this is like the iPhone, right? And so this iPhone that's out there now, for anybody that's a developer, you can develop different applications to run on this, to be able to do whatever, right? I mean, we have people all over the country that are doing different things, right? Like in Minnesota, there's somebody that's taking the robot and having it go up and down like a farm, and be able to, you know, detect when things are ready to pick and all these kind of things. So, you know, a lot of different stuff you can do with it.
You have like a development ecosystem that you welcome developers outside of your company to participate in.
Yeah, that's like that whole ecosystem is in development right now. So there, you know, in Singapore, we have, you know, I'm the only guy here in the US and North America, but in Singapore, we've got about 105 people now. And, you know, I don't know, 40, 50 of those or so probably are engineers that are doing the sprints and, you know, constantly taking feedback and, you know, doing these different integrations and stuff like that as fast as we can. And, you know, the thing for us in the US, right, is that, you know, like I said, the biggest piece is really is understanding, like I said, is that the products that are going to be sold, and again, it's not just my robot, it's not even just a security robot, but for now, and I would say, tell me a time when it's not, except when the robots can fix themselves. But for now on, like the product that's sold is a cobotic solution. It's just like when you buy a car, right? Like you have to have a mechanic. Well, there aren't I mean, you can't take your robot down to the mechanic shop, so the mechanics have to be these service calls, right? And so like that's the way to, to really be successful, again, in any kind of robot business as far as scaling all of this. And that's kind of like, kind of leading, Paul, like you said, like where we're at, how we got connected is that, we will be hiring, a number of engineers to help grow this. I mean, we're already right now, by the end of 2024, we'll be the largest security robot company in the world, because we've got a couple hundred deployed now throughout Southeast Asia. And, because of this approach, because of this integration approach, and because we're just taking, we want to make it as consumable for anybody as if they said, just like if you were an end user and that security camera there, and you call up your security guy and say, oh, I need 2 more security cameras, and I also need one of those security guard robots, right? Like that's how easy it should be. And so that's really where we're at as a business model, as a company. We're taking all of these concepts and then putting it in that package so that the end user, right, it's like a duck, to them it's smooth, but like we're all kicking our feet underwater, right? I mean, it's like, like literally, like you guys know, like there's no doubt, like it's like part of doing technology and building robots is like, of course it doesn't work. It's not supposed to work. Like that's the challenge, right? And like, but like, and it's like, I mean, my wife's the same way. My wife is a singer, right? It's like if she's at home or whatever, she walks up to the microphone and starts singing, and it doesn't like just start whatever. She's like, you can't, right? But I'm like, of course it doesn't work. I'm like, it's a piece of technology. We have to make it work, right? And so, but that's kind of like the whole point is like, we have to make it where whoever it is that's consuming it, essentially the public, the end user or whatever, like they're just like that singer where they just walk up and start singing, right? Because like until then, they're going to say, oh, that's after my job. That's coming after this. That's coming after. And we all know that's crazy talk. I mean, of course, it's coming after a job, but it's not a job you want, right? It's coming after this job that you don't have to do anymore so that you can now go make $150,000 instead of living a life where you thought you had to make $12 an hour, right? You take that skill set and go learn how to do that. That's what it's all about. And that's what I tell literally all the time. Really to me, robotics are like the full, whatever you can, depending on your crowd, you could say it's the American dream or the creative dream or whatever, but it's like literally now in this country, if you wanted, like me, if I wanted to be I wanted to start a tire warehouse, like I could go open a tire warehouse where I had robots doing everything, including putting tires on the vehicles, right? As one guy. And you could start a whole empire, like you could scale that infinitely, right? And so now it's like, people say, oh, robots are going to take our job. No, they're not. Robots are going to take all of these. It's the same way that personal computers did in 1980, right? Like everybody thought personal computers were going to take their jobs. No, we just realized like it took the jobs that humans aren't supposed to do. And so I think that's what I challenge everybody that's out there making robots is one, make these tools that do jobs that just are dumb. Like humans don't, like think about like what job did you ever have that you hated, right? Okay, nobody has to do that job anymore, right? Like why is there not a roofing robot yet, So, and I think that's like the approach, and then it just will kind of grow from there. And I think that, in terms of adoption, like I said, making those things where they're scalable and consumable is the number one thing. Like you have to make it where somebody can get one thing, start with that one thing and see an ROI like within 2 weeks. Like, oh, that's doing something. Like, for example, like if anybody has gotten an Astro robot from Amazon to test one of those out, like I had one of those kind of house. I'm like, what do I need an Amazon Alexa to follow me around the house for? Like it's over there. Like it can hear me. Like, like what is the point of this? And so that's what I'm saying. Like that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And I think the other piece of that too is that when you have a good idea, right? It's like your idea is probably a lot better than you think. Like probably everybody in here could have, if you don't already, could probably already have a much bigger robotics company than I have if you just go out and do it, because there aren't robots out there. Like, it seems like there's a lot of robots out there that are doing things, but like most of the robots in the world are Amazon robots. If anybody here works for Amazon, but I mean, they have most of the robots. They're the largest robotic company in the world. Everybody else is like, regardless of what they look like on LinkedIn, most of them are very small companies. There's a few that are heavily, even ones that are heavily VC funded, right? Like this is the interesting thing too, is like, if you do have a robot company, like be careful where you get your money from, because if you get all that money and you get $20 million in VC money, like that is not as good as it sounds, because that locks you in. Because I think the interesting thing too is like being a roboticist is not just like, oh, you're a boring engineer. No, you're an artist, right? Like you're creating something, you're creating some piece of life. And when you get somebody that says, like, if you get an idea for a robot and say, here's what we're taking to market, and then you get locked in on that money, then they won't let you. When you realize, like, because your mind is thinking in a quantum space, and you realize, like, 6 months down the line, oh shoot, I should have done it this way. I found that there's a new technology to do it this way. They won't let you. You can't do that because you've got the money based on this, right? And so that's what, again, this is the innovator's dilemma. This is why these products never make it to market. And so, you know, again, for whatever that's worth, I don't know. But, you know, again, it's all about that integration to the back end platform. We talked about the elevators, you know, being able to go up and down. This is where there's a lot of, like I said, really the robotic middleware framework for us, being able to integrate not just our robot, but any robot with these different building systems.
Robotic middleware framework. I just was reading about it this morning that the OS Open Source Robotics Alliance is taking under its umbrella to integrate like elevators and building services, like you're talking about. That's that sort of activity.
Yeah, and this, right, yeah, exactly. And this robotic middleware framework, this is a specific initiative that's sponsored by the government of Singapore, like I said, because they want to make all of those things work together. And this will happen. I mean, you know, like anything right now, again, you can draw a parallel, and I can easily draw it to the IP security camera industry, right? When those cameras first came out, you had the Axis cameras work with the Axis systems and blah, blah, blah. And if you wanted your Axis camera to work with Milestone, then you had to go all this through direct integration, and it was going to cost you $50,000, all these kind of things. And then all of a sudden the market demands openness, right? Just like with Windows and Mac. I mean, you know, the market demands interoperability, and then protocols come along like ONVIF or like robotic middleware framework or open source robotics that'll make everything be able to work with everything. So, you know, so again, like at the end of the day, if you're a roboticist, you're really a software company. And so, like, you know, if you want to make money, then you got to sell as many software licenses as possible. So you got to bring some unique value proposition to what your software does to making not just your robot, but making this whole ecosystem thrive. Some of our clients, and we've got a number of different clients, obviously around the world, a lot of different global developments. In fact, last year we won the award. So, you know, in terms of security robotics, and that's all my presentation. I'll shut that down. Let me see if I've got, let's see. I was going to just share. This other one has some more interesting use cases, and maybe just wanted to stop talking as well and answer any questions you guys have as well. Yep.
In terms of the data, does the platform interface with platform that are there available already, like Splunk or Elastic or Dribble? Can you move the data over and
Yeah. All of those types of data, we have pretty open APIs to be able to pull things back and forth as needed.
Oh, could you rephrase the question and then how you answered it so we can get a pickup on the audio?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, your question as far as interoperability with different observation and management systems. Yeah, we have open APIs. So again, like I said, you know, it's all about understanding where we are as the iPhone, and maybe Smart Plus is like iOS or whatever, and then open to those integration stuff. Push and pull data as needed. Yeah.
I have two questions. You mentioned like career opportunities, and looking at the KABAM site, all of these are in Singapore. So I was wondering, should we network with you in particular and follow up about the network opportunities here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Let me pass out my cards.
Okay.
Maybe pass them around the room.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And my second question is, how important do you think it is to speak the language of Singapore, which is Malay and English?
Well, they speak English.
They just speak English, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you
Yeah.
think it's important to pick up Malay?
No.
No, not at all. Okay.
Singapore is like New York City, but like, I mean, it's everybody there speaks English basically, and and a lot of other different languages as well. But English is the lingua franca, right?
So for your robots as a service business model, do you have like 24/7 monitoring service that you offer customers so that you don't, so that Microsoft doesn't have to set up their own monitoring service?
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty much the standard business model that's set up out there. Yeah. And so it really depends on, again, who's offering that, whether it's the security company or whatever, but yeah, that's exactly the model. Sure. And usually there's also, there's two pieces, right? Because again, it's all about understanding those layers of how this robot gets consumed. You have to offer like a maintenance service package. You also have to offer connectivity and all these kind of things. And then you may have to be able to support whatever the actions are, there are security actions as well, right? And so then it's like, you have to divide all of these things up, and really just the interesting thing is that when you go to the end user, you have to make sure that you're very specific on what the workflow is, right? And I think that's again, speaking not just about this robot, but really seeing any robot get integrated in, it's like the most difficult thing is for the end user to redevelop their workflows to integrate a robot into there, right? Because then it's like we want to have a robot come over and take over these 3 jobs, right? Like people would say that, okay, well, what does that look like, right? And then people don't really have that. They think, well, it looks like a yellow robot with legs. Okay, well, what does that workflow look like, right? And that's a different piece where you, and that's why you do have to have, you literally have to go through this like integration or like, consultant type or channel, right? Because again, you see so many times, right? Like really smart people have the greatest robot, the greatest whatever. You take that because you are the builder of it and the creator. Nobody knows it better than you. You take that to the end user. They can't make it work. They can't see your vision. They don't know how to, all they want to do is ask you about how does it do this, that, or the other. And you're like, it doesn't fly or do whatever, man. It does this, right? Like we've all been in those conversations. And so really what you have to do is like, you have to think of like in a very Christopher Nolan kind of like Inception kind of way where you have to be like, this is what this robot's going to do. And then you have to go there and present it to them in a way that it makes it their idea that that's exactly what that robot wanted to do. Again, that's kind of like universal, regardless of whether it's a security robot or whatever, right? Because as you guys know, if you just go in and say robots, 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 and you leave the room, like everybody's mind soars and they think, and they're just like, wow, so like you have to like really curate, like it's like you have to be an author and like really like curate the experience of what your robot is going to be for them in their mind. So, any other questions?
Exactly is the robot looking for the security? Looking to see if someone is in the wrong room, or is it maybe looking to see if someone has.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's and we kind of skipped over those some of those security different types of detections, but yeah, so we use the computer vision on our side to be able to do a number of different use cases, like detecting smoking, detecting a weapon, or I'm not going to say detecting a weapon on our side, but facial recognition versus detection, all of these kind of things, whether it's a human, how many humans there are, reading a license plate, what color was the vehicle, what type of vehicle, is the light out, all those kind of things are things that we do. And then the other thing is, the other piece is that there are a ton of companies that are specialized in doing those types of video analytics. And so because the cameras that we're using on there are normal security cameras, you can take one of those feeds and send those directly to your video analytics, just like if it was the camera on the wall. So then if you think about, again, that goes back to workflow, right? It's like, we don't want them to have to, literally what they want from a security guard is there's one piece of glass. They want that single glass, right? And everything that's security related comes to them through that single glass without them having to click an X or shift tab or anything like that. And so, to be able to do that, that's where, you take those pieces, right? And you all put them back there into that integrated one piece, like with the milestone. Yeah.
So are you using Microsoft Azure to decide about that?
We are, so we developed everything pretty much on AWS. And that was our main development partner in Singapore. And we host them on AWS, here in North America now as well. And we do support Azure, and but not all the functions yet, but it'll be fully functional on Azure and by the end of this year. Yeah. Yeah.
I assume the LiDAR is like, it's not just line scanning, it's 3D vertical scanning as well.
Yeah.
So you get the image around it. So how does it deal with navigation around the environment, with the indoor and the outdoor environment? Does it have like pre-planned routes, or find its way between obstacles, or?
Yeah, definitely a little bit of both. So, it does, you take and you map the robots, like I said, to start on the indoor robot, obviously you push the robot around and it uses the LiDAR to map it just like you guys would have it mapped any other robot, pretty similar. And then you set up its routes, but then as long as it knows, or essentially you set up its mission, right? So it knows from point A to point B, and then it will make its way from point A to point B within the allowed area, the most efficient way possible, avoiding people, avoiding all those kind of things. So you're not specifically saying you have to go down this 2-foot path necessarily, right? Unless you have an application like, we have it running next to, like on a bridge or something like that, or on a walkway, here's the walkway that you have to go on the outdoor robot. And so the indoor robot uses a 2D LiDAR, and then the outdoor robot is using, like I said, the 2D LiDARs, 2 on each side, and then has a 3D LiDAR on the top. And then we're also using visual navigation as well, using the computer vision. So, like I said, homography, where you're able to take a 2D image and determine depth and stuff like that by, whatever math,
The 2D LiDAR meaning line scan, or what exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah, the little hockey puck ones. So
Which?
the hockey puck.
Yeah. Okay, so like a sick line scan that spins around in a circle and you get reflections at a certain, whatever the elevation of the LiDAR.
Yes, so we have them like on the outdoor one, they're running this way, and then they're running down here as well, and then we have a 3D one running on top as well.
So there's multiple different.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that way you're able to, because and that's a big piece, right? Because you have to be able to detect, especially on this outdoor robot, you can see, like it is big enough and it weighs 300 pounds that I could walk up there as a kid, I could stick my foot in between there. And so you have to be able to stop that robot so it doesn't run over somebody's foot if they're being dumb. And, so I think that is where, that's one of the real advantages that we have in the security space, is that it's just a sheer fact of being in Singapore. There's 15 million people in that small place, the robots have to be able to move around people very efficiently. Whereas like robots that are developed places where they don't, that's like a secondary consideration, right? And so again, that's where the, kind of our core competencies, if I would sum it up, right? Like the location, because of that, the ability, the fact that, from the hardware and software side came from that teleoperability first, instead of creating that autonomous robot first. And then from the hardware, manufacturing side coming from that automotive industry, right? And that's really like, that's what makes us where we've been able to go in 4 years now to be able to be the largest, security robot company. So I would say in the US, honestly, we're expecting to probably put out, say, 10 to 50 robots this year. And, the demand for security robots in the US right now is about 500,000 robots. And so, if you're a young and enterprising or older and enterprising, just go out there and make a security robot company, right? Like, I don't want to make, I don't mean that to say that you have to make competition. I only mean that to say there's so much opportunity in the security robotics market. And, there's not a real clear market leader like there is in, like with Kudu or somebody like that in the other verticals, and there's not as many hurdles and regulations and all of that as there is if you're doing a pizza delivery robot, right? Because you don't want to have to deal with a robot that goes on public streets. That's a whole different thing. But I think the main thing that has been, where, if I could say one last thing, right, is ultimately where we succeed is that, our vision is to build these robots that fit into our world, as opposed to having to build robots where we have to then alter the world to fit them, right? And that's why we've been able to make these huge jumps really quickly.
Why can't we just go to development and push the button?
Well, there's, that's, yeah, no, that's literally, that probably, Yeah, to be honest with you, I mean, there are robots that do that or that have tried that. And, you know, you can do it with an arm, but it's very complicated. I mean, why are you asking me? Why do you guys build a robot? Why can't it do that? I don't know. I think about that all the time. I'm like, you know, somebody needs to just build an arm called the symbiote that you can put on any other robot that can do all of those things. You know? So,
Yeah, so you're saying that this is all very modular, the design of it?
Mm.
So I assume that each module has a lot of processing power and it integrates to the rest of the system using DOS communications.
Yeah.
And so there's the, can we have third-party developers of modules that can be added to it? Or?
yeah, theoretically, I mean, absolutely. We talk to people all the time that are, I mean, we're integrating like third party. Actually, already we're integrating third party like detections, like for different sound integrations and stuff like that. So, yeah, and I mean, we have some really neat things that are, you know, in development and that are proprietary to other customers, where they're combining robots and making Frankensteins and all kinds of neat stuff. So, yeah.
Is any aerial aspect? It helps the rest of it.
No, yeah, everything we do is AGVs. Yeah.
That'd be cool. Yeah, the third-party aerial robot that interfaces to these.
Well, that's it. Yeah, so that's a great point. So our hardware is the AGVs, but we can integrate Smart Plus with any yeah, we already have some yeah, we have some applications where we do integrate that, because you can integrate your mission control, you can bring the video back just like you would, because and even, you know, realistically, like what's going to evolve here is that you know, that'll kind of become right now it's you know, very much the robot integrating with the CCTV world, right? And then our software is integrating with, you know, doing whatever that is, but it's already evolving to where people are saying, well, can you just take our camera feeds and integrate them into do that thing, right? And so now, I mean, you can already see it, right? Like, yeah, so like, you know, if you already have the ability to, you know, control the AGV and get an aerial feed, and, you know, because that's one of the things, right? I can tell you, I mean, if you have robots that we can make work in the air, then we should talk, because I can tell you customers right now, like literally, this is what people ask all the time. It's like, okay, so what can the robot do if it detects something, right? You know, and we talk, you know, there's a number of different cases, right? But one of the most legitimate case studies for what a robot interdiction could have done is like the Uvalde situation, right? So if you have that scenario, right, and if you have a fully connected system where you have audio detection and video detection and robots and all these and aerial assets, you know, now when, you know, so that car hits the tree and it's whatever 200 meters away, well, that's too far for video, but the audio detection would have detected audio anomaly, and as soon as it would have done that, like the robots are out there checking it out, you know, the aerial assets out there checking it out. And then, you know, they're going up, and like ideally it goes up, and then they identify, oh, little old lady crashed her car or whatever, you know, de-escalate. But like when they do see this scenario, right, like it's immediately like lights on, you've got teleoperators, you got police on the other side of the robots, right? If you need to kamikaze right, I mean, you can do these kind of things, right? And you can literally save lives, and you can make that thing happen. It never gets within 200 meters of the building. And if it does, the entire building was automatically locked down because the robots locked the people inside, right? And then in that scenario, when you had like, there was a door that was ajar because a rock was blocking it, it would immediately said, this door is ajar. And then because of everybody's badges being integrated in or their phones being integrated in, you would say, all of these people are here, right? So like, I mean, these are things that this is a real world scenario that the technology exists right now where that would never happen again, you know? And so that's, I mean, like I said, that's something I'm very passionate about, because like, this is literally, you know, I drop my kid off at middle school every day. There's two dudes standing outside in Denton, Texas with like bulletproof vests on, right? I mean,
AGV, what's your name?
what's that?
AGV, yeah.
Oh, AGV.
Oh, AGV,
AGV.
autonomous ground vehicle,
Okay.
autonomous ground vehicles. Yeah.
The aerial one, acronym?
Hang on. Yeah.
It's UAVs,
Yeah.
or I guess, you know, if they're autonomous. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you allowed to talk about the technology stack that you guys use on the AI side for vision and such as? You might be besides her, so no pressure.
I mean, you're probably asking the wrong guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I probably would want to bring in, CTOs or CEOs, or CTOs or director of that piece to talk about that. Yeah, exactly.
Question from Arun online. Curious to know what battery capacity of the robot is, the average power consumption of the robot.
So generally, the runtime between charges for both robots is about 6.5 hours if they were to run nonstop. That can be scaled up. Like I said, modular, we can go all the way up to 120 amp hour battery. So I think they start with a 40 amp hour battery that gives them 6.5. So you could, in theory, run it, I guess, all day on a battery. But the the interesting thing about security robots is that it doesn't really actually work like that, because the way, you have to think about, again, it's the workflow. You deploy these in the similar workflow that you would human beings. So it's like, even if you had an outdoor scenario, and this is one of the nice things, is like our robots, the outdoor robot uses induction charging, so it can charge even during the rain. And so you would set this robot up to, say, have different sentry points. And so like he does a patrol, and then like he's sitting there and he's guarding this entrance for a little while, or he's looking at this parking lot for whatever it might be, right? And while he's doing that, he is getting a little opportunity charge every time. Just like a security guard sitting on a stool, right? Just charging his batteries a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. Except with the one difference is that our guys are not scrolling TikTok. And so then what happens? So then that's the real important part, is we tell people, right? Is even when the robot is not actively moving, he's still a 100% active participant in the security system. So that if something is triggered, like an event with a whatever camera or whatever in the integrated system, then if he's on his charger, he's going, whatever, he's going to go respond to that event. So.
What sort of wireless communications technologies do you use? Because Wi-Fi is just always a barrier.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we obviously support Wi-Fi and 4G, 5G, LTE. I will say that, in terms of, obviously Wi-Fi 7 hopefully solves a lot of those problems, right? In terms of the hops and all that kind of stuff. That's the idea. But, there's obviously a huge case to be made, and we partner, in fact, where our location is in Irving is with our partner that does connectivity. And so there's a huge case to be made, especially for private LTE at the enterprise level. Because private LTE, right? I mean, long story short, it's like you could have a Wi-Fi router, or you could have a private LTE router and plug your fiber in that you have. And so you plug your, instead of plugging into Wi-Fi and lighting up your Wi-Fi system, you plug it into your own private LTE tower that's the same size. And now it's going to put out your own private LTE network, and then you put your own little SIM cards, whether the proprietary SIMs that are your SIM cards. And so now everything that's within a 1.5 mile radius of your little thing here, you put in, whether it's your whatever communication devices, robots, anything can be put on this network, and now you have that full LTE connectivity without having to worry about paying $10 a month for whatever, because the robots like these, they're going to take about 80 gigabytes of data, right, per month is what they're streaming. And they could be less, but you cannot stop people from sitting there and staring at the video. It's like, stop doing that, right? But you don't need to do that. That's the whole point, right? So anyway, the private LTE, I think, is, in my mind, it's especially for outdoor robotics or any type of enterprise deployment, campus deployment. I think the only reason there's not more private LTE out there is just it's been cost prohibitive and stuff like that, and really understanding, and like I said, because it's a very heavily engineered product, and does anybody in here work for Nokia? Oh, okay. Well, then not currently. Okay. Well, they're Nokia engineers. It's hard to buy anything from them because all they want to do is give you engineering specs. You're like, well, how do I buy it? So that's the reason why nobody has it. So yeah.
Especially the IoT space, you don't have
IoT device manufacturer somewhere.
Yeah. And I think the important thing to remember, right, because this is, while it's easy to talk about the connectivity and, the bottlenecks and all that, the important thing to remember is that these robots don't need to be connected to work. They're still going to do their full job. And I think that's one of the things where I think from a, I struggle with that on a daily basis, right? To make people understand, like, because I want to answer their questions about their connectivity concerns, but then I also want to remind them, like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's still doing its job. Like, it's still going to do its job. That's the whole point. Yeah. Any other questions?
Just curious why, if you know why why KABAM based software stack on ROS. We've got a few ROS people here in the group, but
Well, I think our CTO came from ROS. So yeah, I mean, everyone on the engineering side, software side is very ROS intensive, and they're very interactive with the ROS groups. In fact, I mean, if you go onto the ROS Singapore groups, YouTube, you'll see a number of different, KABAM's always speaking, like our CTO and director of technology and all of these things are always speaking on those things. So, and I think, ultimately because it allows us to, provide fleet management control of like tens of thousands of vehicles right now, and I think there's a huge demand for that in the market, right? Because like, just imagine, like, if you could build a robot, okay, let's say you build a robot, you're like, wow, this is neat. I've got an awesome robot that's got a value proposition to the world. And I found, contracts, CMs in China, they're going to build this robot for me. I can build 1 million of them. And it's like, oh man, now I got to build all this UI and stuff. It's like, what if you could just take that robot and then say, oh, well, you can just buy a KABAM license. And that's the whole idea, right? It's like being able to help get more robots out there.
You mentioned sales plans for the U.S., but what about resource company growth plan? Talk a little bit about what kinds of groups you tend to build, what kinds of employees or people.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I think the biggest part for us is that, really what we need, what we'll be hiring in the U.S. is not necessarily like PhD level people, right? I mean, we need people that want to be out there and putting their hands on robots, that aren't afraid to turn wrenches and all of that kind of stuff.
So implementers, deployments, maintenance, that kind of.
Yeah, and I would say, really, because we don't go directly to an end user. Like, say, I wouldn't go directly to, I don't know, am I thinking of, like, I don't know, what's a big company in town? Yeah, perfect example. So that's a really perfect example, actually. So I don't go directly to Chase Bank, but I have an integrator who's a robot integrator, or an integrator who's a security integrator, that then takes my robot, and they're the ones that puts the robot out on a robot as a service platform, right? So they're the ones that are doing all of that service and stuff like that. In Singapore, KABAM does all of this ourselves. We do the whole service and everything like that. But in the US, it's just not possible because, again, the way that the structure of the market is. So we get in, so we certify and train a dealer or an integrator to do a certain level, right? And then we support beyond that. And so essentially the teams that we'll be building out would be like, it's very geographic vertical market or geographic market based. And that's where, when you talk about robots as a service, and one of the things that I think that why we have to take the lead on building these people ourselves is because we have to make the market understand that, unlike in the past when you went and sold something based on the vertical market, that's the question people always ask you: what vertical market do you sell into? Like, well, do they have an outside and an inside? Because like, I'm good on both, like, so like literally every vertical market, And so if you can do every vertical market, well, then you have to be geographic market focused in order to be successful. And that's what the KABAM model being based in Singapore has proven, right? And so then if you go and you say, okay, GDP of Singapore is 596 million, and they've got 200 robots, and the GDP of Dallas-Fort Worth is 750 million, and how many robots can we have based on that? Right, and then you have to build that GDP, and so the teams that we'll be building will be, essentially like a field sales engineer, and not really a service engineer, right? Like this person, they won't be going out on every single deployment, right? They'll be certifying their dealers and supporting their dealers with elevated level of troubleshooting. You know, I mean, they're going to be busy. They're going to be going out all the time, right? They're going to be ideally, but they're not going to be first line response, right? Because the way to build is that essentially we want to, you know, me, right? I mean, let's be real. It's just me here in the US right now. But what we have to build is a team that is able to exponentiate ourselves, because there's 65,000 salespeople in the security industry in the US already. And so what we have to do is get as many of those 65,000 salespeople out there pushing our concepts as possible, right? And building that down to a back of a pyramid so that we have the right levels. Let's say, for example, you know, it'll probably split up at first to be like, say, you know, a field sales engineer for the central US and a field sales engineer for the West and for the East, right? And then that person will be responsible for working with the dealers and end users and et cetera in that area to make sure whether that's, you know, some days it might be first level response. And it's like, oh man, I got to go, you know.
Helping them through, there's some problem, head office help with.
Yeah.
There's some new requirements, some of the need that we convey, what the stress.
Right. And
that's somebody to be spending a lot of time.
A lot of remote time. Because that's an interesting, like over 90% of all the issues that are going to happen with our robot are going to be able to be resolved via remote. Hardly any time is anybody ever actually going to go out there. And that's as part of the RAST programs. They're already putting in quarterly touches on these things to do preventative maintenance, you know? So like, that means every 3 months they're out there. I mean, that robot's getting touched a lot already, right? Once the system's matured. So that's where the field sales engineer is going to be, you know, essentially like this hybrid between like a customer success and someone who can turn wrenches, right? Someone who knows how to do what needs to be done in the field, someone that can show and explain to other people who may not have the experience, but, you know, maybe they know how to install and program security cameras, but they're going to get lost on a robot real quick, right? So like, are you capable of like using their eyes as your eyes and guiding them from afar to be able to troubleshoot these things? Because that's where you think about is like the customer base that's out there is generally going to be, you know, some guy that's like out there and he's like standing there and the end user's behind him and he's tried everything. He's like, shit. And so he's got a call, right? And so it's like, you need to be able to help him like immediately. And so I think one of the things that obviously for us, we utilize as much technology as possible. Like, you know, you mentioned Microsoft, we're already working with Microsoft as part of our Azure platform to be able to use the HoloLens so that we can, you know, have the dealers out there in the field that are certified dealers. Well, now they can go out there and you can get that, you know, first person POV to help guide them through those issues and stuff. So, you know, so I'll probably be hiring 3 of those people for ideally by the end of the year, and then have, you know, matching salespeople essentially to, you know, work these regions together to have a salesperson.
So, or technical person or sales focused.
Yeah.
Revenue quota person.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Pretty standard, right? I mean, this is, yeah, I don't want to reinvent the wheel here, right? Like, I mean, this is what we've been doing in the industry a long time. And I think that's really where we are innovating and reinventing the wheel, is that we're trying to take a robot company and make sure it goes and flows this way to market, because this is the way that companies spend money, right? Even if they want to buy other stuff, like you guys, I mean, it's like getting as an approved vendor for somebody like that is like a year-long process. But like, so by the time the person that wants to buy something from you, by the time you get approved vendor with that company, that person's already moved on to another job. Like, this is why nothing happens. So like the way to address it is to buy, you know, this middleware, not only of the robotic middleware framework, but of the cobotic middleware framework of the actual humans that can make this happen like immediately. And like I say this all the time is like, you know, because what I leave with customers is like, this is not a science project, right? Like we're not going out of this sales development meeting saying, oh, this is neat. Like, no, you tell me how many robots you need. We've got them in stock in Irving. Like, we'll ship them out and we'll deploy these right away, you know? So.
What kind of experience level ideally do you think for these people?
I mean, I think it's not like I said, it's not PhD level, right? I mean, in terms of education wise, I mean, it's, you know, like a DeVry person, those people do really well, you know? I think it's more about like, you know, I mean, obviously this is the right type of room, but it's about like, you know, are you willing to like be stressed out and like live the startup life and like be on the bleeding edge of robotics. And, I'm only 24 and so, but I think that's really it. And I think that it requires, a lot of creativity. You have to be a real creative person. It requires, a complete inability to say it doesn't work like that. I think that's the most frustrating thing is when any engineer tells me it doesn't work like that. Like, no shit. Like, it's our job. Like, of course it doesn't work like that. So I think that's, you just have to be willing to, like, it's like, you take inspiration from like from Jensen and what, NVIDIA, right? Like, you guys see the Blackwell chip? Like, the Blackwell chip, like, the physicists told their engineers, no, that goes against the laws of physics, can't be done. Fuck you, right? Yeah.
Enough with Moore's law.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't fast enough.
No, exactly right. And I think that's, and I think that's really where you have to be, right? Because I don't believe that you have to pay your dues in anything, right? I think that, because it's like, my personal history, like nobody in this room knows me. My personal history is only because what I've told you. Like I could be literally anyone. Like, you know what I mean? And so like you don't have to pay any kind of dues. You just have to make it work. And so I think that's where, we try to, at least myself, right? I try to take like that quantum probabilistic approach to say like, okay, envision the end state. What do we want to be? We want to have robots in everywhere. All right. Well, what are the many possible ways that we can get robots out there, and then start collapsing those waves, right, to be able to find the path. And then if you do that, then you only have to trust yourself, and that's kind of the beautiful thing. So
I'm hearing honestly, you would entertain if someone interested straight out of school.
no, for sure. Yeah, for sure. That's why David reached out, right? We need to build those pipelines. Honestly, guys, like in our facility, we have a connection with a lot of the universities there in Singapore. And so we have our normal programming team, but then we have a whole bunch of interns that are working on the programming team is working on the stuff that's got to be done, but the interns are like working on the moonshot stuff, right? Like the stuff that, but then they really like, sometimes they'll hit on something really neat, because like it's kind of like the process. So being able to have that kind of innovation bed has been really advantageous. And I think that's too is like looking beyond this year. Our goal definitely is to, we'll be bringing in more R&D and just building the whole organization here, based in the DFW area.
In your R&D.
Yeah. Interestingly, so Michael, who's so KABAM is an acronym. Kelvin and Benjamin and Michael, the three founders, and so Michael's actually from Grapevine. So he's an expat that lives in Singapore, but so giving him a reason and building up over here is good.
I'm not sure if I'd call one, but for the more technical jobs in the US, would you be interested in a software engineering at the moment?
I think that the main thing is going to be the hardware ability. Yeah. Because software can be done from anywhere in the world. Yeah. And I think that, but it's like, I would say nothing is excluded, right? I think that, because what is hardware? Like, do you know what an Allen wrench is, and can you turn it to the left or right? You can do that, and as long as you know how to troubleshoot, right? I think that's the most important thing, in my experience of seeing in robotics, right? Is number one, troubleshooting, and, not just troubleshooting, but like relentless. I think that's like, like you had to grow up like going out on a boat, like with a sketchy engine with your grandfather, to like, you have to have like that level of like relentlessness with a robot, so yeah.
So for the software ones, are there any remote options?
Yeah, they're hiring their software team in Singapore. They do have remote people that they develop or that they have in like India and stuff like that. But like I said, for us, as far as software development in the US, we'll probably, we'll move towards that. But the main thing is like over the next, and we got to get the robots out in the world and get the people to make sure that they're functioning, right? And I think the biggest thing is like the customer success aspect of it. because this person is kind of has to be a, sales and engineer. And like I said, never say no and just put up with literally, like at the end of the day, you're like, man, how can people ask me that kind of question? But like, that's the job that's going to be.
You're the face of your company.
Yeah.
You have to, at once, sell it and support it and make it work and bring back new ideas for R&D.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is like, not only that, but, somebody, like I said, who's creative, I want somebody who knows, like somebody who can come to me and say, hey, I just did like an entire year's worth of work with ChatGPT in 30 minutes. Like, that's the kind of person I need. You know what I mean? It's like if for example, it's like, we'll need to have a training, like a certification training for dealers, right? Something like that. Well, I know somebody who has any knowledge on like you could do that in less than a day by using ChatGPT. You could put a whole one together. Like, I've done that. And so like, that's the kind of person I need, is someone who has that kind of like relentless, kind of creativity that, like I said, it's like, it's like, it's like, what's the old the Bill Gates saying, right? Like, you want to hire the lazy man to do the job because they're going to find the easiest possible way. Any others?
You forgot to ask the people asked to ask.
I don't know. I mean, I think, no, these have been great questions. I mean, like I said, I think that, maybe we can coordinate, Paul, I can coordinate a time to where we can set up a meet and greet with the robots.
Yeah, so I would be interested in the floor of the experience since there's a good number of it are working, would a sand day work for you?
Yeah, we could probably make that work. It would probably be
What'd you say? Maybe 2
hours from now.
Rob's already given up his whole morning for us.
It was my wife's birthday party last night.
We need a couple weeks.
Probably, it probably have to be, I think this great show. But probably like the second. Third week of August, the third week of April, possible. Around the 21st. 20,
Is this Saturday? Would that, are people interested in the training?
Absolutely.
Oh wait, yeah, you're right. I take that back. I'm not available.
What sort of time would work for you, Rob?
I'm not sure because I'll have to coordinate with those other guys. Let's coordinate that this week and with that target date.
Okay.
But I mean, I will target for the same time as like this.
Does that sound like it would work for people who are interested in going?
I'm very
Okay.
good and available.
Great. Then we'll use the mailing list, the DPRG mailing list, to make an announcement once we get finalized.
Robots themselves. It is very fortunate that you guys live so close to the robots here. Because,
I did take the liberty of making a YouTube video out of your videos on your website and put on the
awesome.
mailing list.
Yeah.
Did everyone here see that? Yeah, I'll just
Approved this morning, so it should have gone out.
And I would say too, like I said on the YouTube, obviously there's videos on our channel, and any of the ones that have Michael Sayer, who's our he's one of the founders, the director of something now. There's a KABAM channel. Director of technology. Yeah, we have KABAM channel on YouTube. Executive director is what Michael is now. That's official. And so anywhere where Michael's talking, he's, since he's the one that's behind all of the actual hardware and stuff like that, it's very good to talk about it and explain it. There's a whole lot of, videos of him giving basically the exact same presentation and people asking questions in the crowd and stuff like that. So I think that's where we get the interesting stuff too.
Feel welcome to stick around if you'd like to stay for pizza.
Well, it's my wife's birthday, so I better.
Oh boy, you really did us proud coming out on your to talk to us on your wife's birthday. Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much, Rob. Really appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Be in touch.
Thank you, guys. Anybody wants a card, this is probably a good time to
I
ask.
think I passed them all over.
You already did it?
Okay, thanks everyone, appreciate you guys. Yeah, and you can, if anyone wants to connect with me, call me obviously, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Thanks guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Well, let's take a, oh, there we go.
Yeah, this is a 1 minute video and then we'll take a break and, but I just pulled it off of the website. Yeah, I'm excited to see these things.
In black. Busted. It's almost Dalek shaped.
Yeah,
Just-
personalization kit for it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a little bit of modding, it would be there.
I like this guy. Catching the smoker.
I was president, had gum chewing.
Yeah, they just need to add to the audio a good sample of exterminate.
Okay, so should we take a short break and then pizza should be arriving here momentarily. And then I've got maybe after we get some pizza going, then got a few announcements to make about upcoming stuff, and then we can move into a robot show and tell. Sound good? All right.
All right.
Take 5-10 minute break. 5 minute break.
Okay, anybody who has to use the restroom, I can escort them to the restroom, because that's in the first section. While if you need that service, let me know.
Oops. What's
Yeah, Pat, I bought, there were gimbal motors that had the AS56 attached to the back. And the part it's pretty much made. It has all the pins that you need to plug the AS5600 into the FOC control board. So
Okay, I was just looking. They have one for about $20 Canadian, $17,
Right.
$18, and it's got a connector on the end, like a dual edge connector on the side,
right.
with I2C inputs basically.
Yeah. There's also, well, the ones that I have two connectors on them, and the one side, I don't know if you can see it through this, but it's like a 3-pin connector. You can also do like a pulse width modulation signal out that indicates what the position of the motor is.
Okay.
So that's continuously changing because it can only count so high. It just doesn't keep increasing. It's got and I think right now there's pretty certain they're set up for, I think, 8,192 counts per revolution, which is really high. but it seems to work. You can do,
Does it come pre-configured? Like, is there a firmware inside where you just tell it to go a certain speed and off it runs?
yeah,
Or do you have?
the simple FOC library, it's an Arduino library, and you can do, you can set it up for kind of like position mode where it rotates. It's actually in radians, but so one revolution of the wheel is 6.28 radians.
Yeah.
Or 2 pi radians. Anyway, so you can just input, say, okay, I want this wheel to rotate this far at this velocity, and it'll do it. And it'll also, like if it overshoots or undershoots, it will adjust it. So it's pretty much exactly what you tell it to go to, down to, I've only done it to 2 decimal places, but you can read out what the rotation was, and and you can even kind of tease it and push the motor shaft a little bit, and it'll basically readjust itself to be back where you set it to be.
So what I'm looking to do is for the Robo Columbus event is I'm looking at picking up some hoverboard motors.
Oh, okay.
And using the hoverboard motors with a belt gear drive.
Oh, all right.
Cog belt to some bigger wheels.
Yeah.
And so to have 4 wheels powered and be able to make an adapter shaft off of the side of the hoverboard motor with the magnetic encoder.
Yeah. Yep.
And then that way, let's say I have a 2-to-1 ratio on the real wheel.
Yeah.
The actual wheel compared to the hoverboard motor. I think that would be plenty fast enough for.
Yeah. The hoverboard motors, they're supposed to go like 6.5 miles an hour, which is pretty fast.
The one I was looking at is 12 kilometers an hour.
Oh, really? Wow. Oh, an
12
hour.
kilometers an hour is, I don't know, going to be 6 or 7 miles an hour, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 10 is 6.2, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll be 7 or so miles an hour. Which is, probably plenty fast for walking beside a robot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I'm just concerned about being able to drive the hoverboard motors with one of those controllers.
Yeah, I think the Plus will do up to 12 amps.
The Plus will do up to 12 amps?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm looking at, it's not a Plus then.
Yeah, it should be made with discrete FETs.
Yeah. Well, I got a great big long link, and I don't know how to make a shorter link.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to send it to you. Yeah. Okay. It says dual FOC plus. Is the one of them I'm looking at.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get a spec on it. And it's 12 to 24 volts. Oh,
yep.
Max current 12 amps.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what you've used with your hoverboard motors.
Yeah, but I can only drive it open loop because I don't have any encoders on it. Apparently there is a mode that's supported if you have the Hall effect outputs, if you're, which the hoverboard motors do have. I haven't tried it yet though. I don't know how well that works.
Yeah, so I don't see a pinout for that when I look at the pinout for the edge connector, I don't see the ABZ pins. So possibly you can repurpose some of the pins to use ABZ.
What are you talking about on the drive?
If they're using an encoder or the 3 separate Hall effect inputs.
Yeah, I think they have, they can look at like an optical encoder output. They can look at the magnetic encoder outputs, one of which is the AS5600. As far as I know, they can look at Hall effect outputs. There might be another one. I thought.
Yeah, I'm on the MakerBase GitHub MKS Dual FOC site, and their manual doesn't go into any of that.
Oh, it doesn't. Okay.
No, so I was just looking to see if I could find something. So I've been looking for a way to do a larger robot to be able to deal with all sorts of terrain, and I really liked your idea with the hoverboard wheels.
Yeah.
Or at least with the motors for that. So I've been looking. Even if I ran it open loop, I don't think it'd be that big of an issue.
Yeah, it seems to do fairly well. Open loop.
You'd have no speed compensation. That's all. So if you say go a certain speed, if you're going in an incline, it would slow down a little or whatever.
Yeah, one of the things that you can do is you can tell it what the maximum motor voltage is, and in open loop, if typically that current has to be higher because you do have you don't have any feedback, so you don't know if you actually achieved say a rotation value or like a position value, or if you're rotating at the right speed. So typically the current for that is higher. So, and it makes the current higher all the time. So when the motor's just sitting there, it draws more current, in open loop.
If it's stalled out, it's going to draw more power.
Well, even if it's just maintaining a position,
okay.
Because if you make that motor voltage limit too low, then you can make it like basically skip or lose count of where it should be rotating to, and it won't know it. So that's kind of the trade-off with open loop, is that current has to be higher. It's higher all the time, and when your wheels aren't rotating, it's pretty high, or it can be high.
Okay.
Depending on what you set it on. But in closed loop, it knows what the position of the motor is, and if it's correct, you draw almost no current at all. So
it'll just give enough current to hold where it is, and it'll drop. If you're at zero, it'll drop the current till it's almost moving, probably, and just enough to keep it locked. Yeah.
Okay. So in an indoor, I don't know, something. I'm using 3 18650 lipos, and kind of like a battery saver thing. If it's just sitting there for a long time or not doing anything, you're not drawing a lot of current, or basically producing heat in the driver, kind of thing. So
I'm sort of wondering how much current it's going to draw. What do I need for a battery? So if I look at the simple solution, a 12-volt SLA battery, is that enough to power it? Let's say I went with 56 amp hour battery.
It sounds